Needed that pop sound to get it going. Welcome to Camp Okayest, powered by X2 Power. I am your host, Shaun Ritter. Don't forget you can follow us on socials at Camp Okayest. Yes, we are everywhere on socials. But let's be real, the only ones that matter are Instagram, maybe occasionally Facebook, and our YouTube channel. Of course, this a stream on YouTube if you want to watch it each and every Thursday evening. Eventually, it'll be live. Secret time. We're actually recording this ahead of time because you have to reach so many subscribers to be live. And since we're not there, we need you to do your part. Click subscribe, and then you can actually watch us live and be able to chat with us. The us that I speak of is what are we on show 7 officially or something, and we're already to a return guest. Can you imagine that? Welcome back into the show. What was it? Was it the second show that Greg Tubbs was a part of?
I think so. Second show, which you said show 7 now, so returning quickly.
Yes, mainly because I am incredibly less than okay at dealing with a calendar, which is actually how I ended up on the another one of the shows you're on, Okayest Hunter, a couple of weeks ago when Eric Godfather Clark messed up his calendar. And I had to jump on and save that. So you're doing the same part in saving me today because I screwed up big time. And it's life, and I think all of us can relate to it. The fact that I have everything going on and I've got the tournament schedule that I'm doing, and so it's just I'm honestly just trying to blame other things. It's just me. I suck.
Well, let's be honest, life gets in the way. My work schedule really botches things up. So on the Okayest Fisher side, I try to pre-record if I know I'm going to be gone for a week. So August is going to be really tough for us to get guests in. Maybe it'll be easy enough to get guests in, but I want to continue on the consistency train, right? We noticed a big uptick in viewing and in following just by being consistent.
Mhm.
So it's just like anything else in life. If you're consistent, you get better. People have a better appreciation for you. It's just like tuning into the radio. They want to listen to the same people every day or every week. They have their show. We're that show, and if the music stops, okay, now they got to find a new show to listen to.
It's the
So
music. It's not the personalities. That's I don't know if that was a nod to my other life slash old life. And why the hell is my light constantly going
you look,
off?
you could be brown, you could be blue, you can
Yeah,
be violet sky there.
change the colors
Look
here.
at that.
Woo! It's gonna go off again. Apparently, we don't. Technology is actually it's kicking my ass today. Like I am absolutely struggling with technology, which is something I do well. Like the lights off
It
again.
goes.
Forget it. There's no light. We're going without
We
this
do our
morning.
best work in the dark.
Oh, anyway, I want to get you on and just kind of have I want to say there's no itinerary to the show this week, but yet I kind of have an itinerary because this is something I like to do and I think fits the whole theme of camp. And what you do is just kind of chit chat about some outdoors related news stories and, kind of just pick opinions. And you're one of these smart, intelligent guys, Greg, that I feel you always have a very good opinion to things. I'm not talking this isn't a crazy opinion piece like it's a news network situation, but we all have stuff and things we can weigh in. And one topic that I wanted to talk about was actually something that came up with another guy that I know that kayak fishes as well. He was talking about a place that he used to wheel his kayak into and stuff to go and fish. They've now put up a fence and blocking it off and forcing you to pay to go a different way to get access to this body of water when it
Mhm.
always has been free. And this is something that bothers me a lot is I feel like in certain situations, and I'm curious if you agree or other situations you can think of, Greg, that I feel like sometimes we're starting to become a pay for play in outdoors activities. Is this something that you've kind of seen a little bit more of,
I
since you do everything?
That's the problem. I do everything, but I do nothing very well. It's all dabble in a little bit of everything because I have ADHD or whatever it is I've got, and I can't stay focused on one particular thing I really like doing. I like it all, but I can see it being an issue. Just on my local lake here, we have public accesses all around. Now, everybody's definition of public access is going to be different, right? Um, I see as public access means anybody can access it, but it doesn't always mean that it's ideal to launch a kayak. It might be just foot travel, might be just a narrow path through a wood, through a wood lot to get you to the water. And when you get there, it's all overgrown because it's not maintained.
Mhm.
It's there just as foot traffic access, and sometimes there's signs there suggesting that, and other times it just says public access has hours. Can't be here until 8 a.m. and have to be gone by sundown. But to your question, I can see it being an issue because a kayak it's a watercraft, right?
Mhm.
Um, we The cool part about having a kayak, and you and I both have one, um, we got that thing for a reason. We got that because we didn't want to go park at the busy launches and have to deal with that. Um, we want to be able to slide that thing in anywhere we can, and for the
Mhm.
most part, unless you have some major obstacles like a huge downhill or a giant rock pile where you don't want to, skid that thing down and tear it up, uh, we can launch it anywhere. But I I ran into it the other day over here at my lake. There's a spot. It's ideal for kayak launching, and people do it all the time. There's always a truck parked there. People are literally parking their vehicles in front of it to kind of disguise it. Like it's happening all the time, and I know who owns the vehicles. They live right there. They have a driveway. They have a spot in front of their house they could park, but they don't. They're blocking it off. And I did get a dirty look because I had to back my truck in. I put it right in between the two cars. It was a Lexus and a BMW. Go figure. Go
Um,
figure.
yeah, just gonna leave that there.
Just gonna jam this Silverado right up over the curb, right in between your two cars. I'm gonna thread the needle, put my four ways on, and pull my kayak off. It's fine. I'll park in front of your house because there's an open spot in front of your house. I came back 2 hours later. The guy was out on the sidewalk with his leaf blower, and he gave me a dirty look. And I nodded at him and waved, and he just looked the other way. Just a complete snob. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Neighbor. I don't know what the problem is. That was allotted as public access. There's a little bench down there for people to sit and watch. Kids can go fish down there. Granted, it's only probably 10 feet wide of access. It's still an access, and you shouldn't be plugging it up, and you shouldn't be screwing it up for everybody.
That's something that I've seen, Greg, on a lot of lakes that have, like you said, public access. It's like, yeah, they give you access, but it's in the middle of the neighborhood essentially, and there's nowhere to park. Everywhere around it, for the longest way, is no parking. Like, I can tell you the last tournament that I fished, the launch that I launched at was kind of one of those. It was just at the end of a road, and there's houses all along it. It's like a little neighborhood essentially.
Yep.
You can launch like you can literally back a boat down it. Like there's concrete, like you can back down into the
Sure.
thing, but there's nowhere to park.
No
Other
place.
than there's randomly this one gentleman that owns a piece of property way up on the corner, like up the hill and on the corner of where this county trunk meets this little road that runs down to the water. And it's technically his private property, but he doesn't care that people park there just to allow the access. And I was talking to the guy that knows a lot of the backstory of this and basically said that people are going to be in trouble when that guy passes. His kids want nothing to do with the piece of property. It's just going to be gone. And obviously, someone's going to put something up there. And now you've lost that parking. So you pretty much lost that entire access point unless. You're going to park on a busy county road, which I'm not even sure if you can do that. They may even know no parking's along there. So, like, it becomes, again, this, like, now you have to go to a ramp and pay someone to launch when there was this public access. However, when the lake's frozen and that's ice, then it's not a problem because you can just drive your vehicle right on.
Yeah, there's big holes in all that, isn't there? You got to find the loopholes to jog through, and there's plenty of people that just don't like the fact that there's public access. I mean, I know what the story is behind our tiny little public accesses around my lake. Those were put there for the neighborhoods. So the neighborhood children could go down there and enjoy the lake and not worry about getting in trouble for trespassing on other properties. The problem is they're so small they can only sustain so many people. Now, my neighborhood, there's two accesses. One is completely impassable. The two neighbors that own on both sides of it, they throw all their lawn clippings, their brush cuttings, all that stuff. There's piles of stuff there. There's a wooden staircase down there to get you down to the lake, but as soon as you're down, you take the last step, and it's about a foot and a half to 2 feet, depending on the water level. to the water, and then you're on a gravel or you're on a rock bar. It
Okay.
it's really not great. And then the neighbor's dock is right there, and then the other neighbor's dock is a little ways off. So you got a narrow little spot. I waited out there, and you can wait out and cast, but the trees are right behind you.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not ideal. So it's there as public access, but it's not very good public access. And the other one, there's really nice steps going down, but getting a kayak down there, and I've done it with the kayak and the canoe. You're down some steep stairs.
Thunk, thunk, thunk,
You're
thunk,
on
thunk,
the
thunk, thunk,
dock,
thunk.
and then you got to get it off the dock, and then go back up the stairs and get all your gear. It's not ideal. And
Yeah.
usually there's kids down there on the dock playing, or they're fishing or swimming or something.
And you mentioned the person with the grass clippings, whatever, and, like, blocking it.
Yeah.
Isn't that illegal? Like, if it's
It
public
is, but
access, isn't that,
but the
like, state?
city, the parks department is who enforces it all, and if
Okay.
it's out of sight, out of mind, nobody's complaining about it, they don't care.
Yeah.
They just don't. So it's up to the city or the township, depending on where you're at, uh, to enforce any of that. Now, the other public access with the nice pier and the stairs, they put a trash can down there, there's a bench that they put up, they pull the pier out and put it in every year. Uh, there is no parking unless you park up the block, and if there's basically a handful of spots. There's probably 3 or 4 spots you can park along the street if nobody else is there, and then you're walking down, which not a big deal, but it's not it's not a beach. Let's just put it to you that way. It's not like the beach down the other side of the street here. That's maybe about a half mile away. Uh, there's plenty of parking there. We could launch a kayak there real easily. Um, but if you don't have a beach pass, you might get ticketed.
Mhm. And
S-
that's one of the other crazy things I've noticed too, and I know we're just talking about lakes. I mean, eventually, we'll expand this out into land as well because I think this issue runs everywhere, which is why I
It
wanted to
does.
talk about it.
It does,
Is
and you see it a lot with public hunting. So we can talk about the land side of it
Yeah.
too. Like there's plenty of pieces around our area here that are landlocked pieces of public, but they were accessible one point in time. And I can think of one piece in particular that there used to be a lane came off the end of the dead end road. It was literally a tractor path, and everybody let it grow up, and nobody was in there to clean it out. So who's in charge of that? Well, it's at the end of a county road. It's technically going between two pieces of private. So who has the right of way there? The DNR doesn't. The township could be cleaning it out, but then they've got to either talk to one landowner or the other. Both landowners decided they didn't want to support it, so let's just let it grow.
What if a private citizen did it? That's the question that comes to me. Like,
Oh,
what
now
if
you're
you or I went and
trespassing.
cleared it?
Yeah, now you're trespassing because we don't own the access. Either the DNR paid as a trespassing
Easement.
fee, an easement fee once upon a time, and it just wasn't upheld because of lack of funding or who knows. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why it could be the situation, but it's tough. Let's be honest. I mean, bottom line is there's a lot of landlocked stuff out there. Unless you know the landowner really well or can convince them to allow you. And this particular piece, I really did my best to talk to this guy, and he was polite at first, and then he got annoyed with me chatting about it, and then just turned at the flip of a switch. I don't know what I said to anger him. He's like, I can't do this. I can't let anybody back here. My neighbors would be mad at me, and I just can't. You need to go. All right. You can't push the issue.
No, and that's the problem. It's really unfortunate because, one of the, I think, greatest parts about the United States, where we both are, is that there is so much public opportunity to hunt and fish. Like, you go places like Europe and it's not that way. You wanna hunt, you have
No,
to be a
that's
part of a hunt club, and,
you
like,
got to be
again, this
part of
is
a
the
club. You
it
have to go through. I talked to a guy from Germany, in fact, just recently through work, and you have to be part of a club. You have to go through certain tests, kind of like a hunter safety essentially, but you have to be licensed to shoot a firearm there. You don't clubs own the firearms, people do not.
right, you rent your weapons from the club,
Basically,
and
yep. That's part of your club dues.
it's just
It's
like,
very, very different.
I don't wanna sound like a, conspiracy theorist or one of these, like, scare tactic people, but that's what I'm afraid that eventually it's coming to here, and I'm not saying, like, tomorrow, but it just feels like we're starting to lean that way the more and more we hear about these situations, and, the biggest one that keeps coming up and is all over the news, all over the place, is the whole corner crossing thing,
Oh, yeah.
and just how that, I think, really starts to open the gate on these things where you've got uh, chunks of land that if my memory's correct, okay, I'm probably going to be wrong at this because I'm just okay at remembering things from history, but out west, a lot of the land was given to employees or people involved with the railroad. So when they built the railroad out west, they were giving this land up, but they couldn't give all of it because it's land owned by the country, so they had to keep the federal land there. So they put in these like squares and they did it like a big checkerboard. And so
Yep.
this was, so it was piece of property that was, given to the railroad to give to their people and then public. And that's what created that big grid checkerboard. I mean, that was
Right.
in good intent at the time. Now flash forward, how many hundreds of years, and now we've got all of these chunks of land that are now owned by private people that are now locking off your access to get to this like public land that's still there, still owned by the United States government, still there for you and I and everyone else to use the same, but we can't access it because they're trying to say that I can't go, over airspace. And that was the argument with these guys. If you're not familiar with the story, just quick back plug. There was these guys who were hunting out west and they had used a ladder to crawl from one piece of property over the corner to the other piece. Their argument was that the ladder was on the ground on the public land on both sides and they crossed over it. The people that owned the private on the opposite corners were arguing that you entered my airspace. I own that land, so you trespassed. Became a whole thing. It's gone through a bunch of different appeals, whatnot. Basically, it's become not legal to corner cross, but they eventually found that yes, you should be able to do that, and it's still in fights. In fact, there's still a thing going into what is it, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in the next couple of weeks, looking at the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, like you said, that there's so much stuff out there that we should have access to, but we don't. And that's why I say I have this fear that like we're slowly working towards that European system because of like this corner thing where you can landlock the stuff. And
Yeah.
then what do you do with it? Because if no one can access it, then it's basically like your free land.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I think the just as frustrating, maybe not a bigger frustration too, with that whole situation is the landowner was basically suing for a very large sum of money
Yep.
due to the fact that the claim was is they damaged or littered on the property, and wasn't the case at all. So they didn't have a leg to stand on with that. But just being dishonest is very, very unbecoming of them. Well, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get that and then some. They're looking to get a little more out of the sweeten the pot, so to speak, in their behalf. And we'll teach them to never cross again over here to try and corner cross. It's just, piss poor,
Hmm.
piss piss poor human nature. I don't know. I'm just not really thrilled with how dishonest people are. We claim to be these great. I might piss some people off here, but we claim to be these great Christian people, but we're super hypocritical.
Hmm.
We can spout stuff from the Bible, but yet we don't adhere to it.
Hmm.
Why is
These
that?
Yeah, it's easy to say something, but to back up and put your actions behind the words, that's especially when money's talking in the situation.
Always.
Now that's there's the eagle. There's that evil there. And isn't that one of the sins or something too?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is. It is. But you know, I digress. I'll get off my political and religion soapbox for now.
well, the thing is, I don't feel that it's political or religious at all. I think it's a fact. It's
Yeah.
how it is. It's stating the facts. And this whole thing, we touched on the boat ramp stuff, and I mean, I'll double down more on that. You look at the places that you can go, like where you do have lake access, right? Like you mentioned, you gotta have a park sticker, you gotta have this. It's like you have to pay all these launch fees, especially when you're someone like in a kayak or I think legitimately even in a stand-up paddleboard. Like you bring your stand-up pump-up paddleboard, you are still supposed to pay the same launch fee as someone with a boat. Unfortunate part, again, not everyone, but there are a lot out there that are in boats that feel that they have a greater right to that access point than you do in your small watercraft because they've got a giant boat on a truck. I just I know this sounds like soapbox and like, but it's a real issue, and this is what this show is. We're going to talk about issues. We're going to talk about controversial stuff and just weigh in opinions. And if you've got an opinion you want to weigh in on something of this, you can feel free to drop a comment. Whether you're watching YouTube stream or anywhere that you listen, you can put a comment on this podcast. You can, whether you're listening on iHeart or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, there's a place to drop a comment. You can comment there. I'd love to hear your opinions on some of this stuff.
Yeah, comments are always welcome. And you know, this is a part about the cool part about being in our country is we have the ability to voice our opinion. You're always going to be subject to ridicule, but we want to hear opinions. We want to see your point of view, because if you don't listen to everybody else's point of view, you're not going to grow and get better.
Hmm. Yeah,
Unless that's your point, and you don't want to grow and get better. You don't want to be a better human. That's on you.
I know. I've got to get the guys from BHA on real soon because they've got such a backcountry hunters and anglers, such a grasp on all of these. I'll call them a social political outdoors event. Like I can't think of any other word to describe it.
Honestly, when BHA first came out, it was a very good watchdog for any kind of mistreatment or injustices put towards public land access. They did a very good job of calling it out as soon as it came out. If there was a bad bill, hey, they'd get on the horn and they would do email blasts. They would do stuff on social. It's become a little more sedate, but they still have a pretty strong dog in the fight.
I
It's a
forget
good
who
organization.
I was having the conversation with, and it's on the same lines of all of this stuff. And I know I was talking with one of the guys from BHA when we were at the winter icebreaker this year about this exact. But just
Yeah,
I
it
was
was Alec
I was
Beckers, and I can give you his contact info
I
if you need
have
it.
his contact info. Like
Okay.
we just got to hook up is what it comes down to. It's just figuring that out. But I was having the same conversation that him and I were having with, you know what? I think it was Rez. I think it was John Resnick, who's also
Yep.
been on the show.
Mhm.
When we were out fishing in Sturgeon Bay that time together, we were talking about it, and I was like mentioning the whole situation in Illinois where there's all of these streams. It's all over the South, really, but Illinois is the
Yeah,
one that Alex and I were talking about, that like where you and I are, Greg, in Wisconsin, as long as your feet are wet, and specifically if it's a federally navigable waterway, you're completely legal. So you can walk up any stream, do anything. Like you could be in front of someone's private property. It's the land. As long as your feet are wet, you're completely fine.
right.
But there's a ton of like streams and all the stuff in Illinois where it's not that. The stream bed is considered land. So if that stream bed fluctuates ever, so even if like it goes dry one season, you own that land, but the rest of the time it's always water. It the water, the land itself supersedes the water. So you can't like walk into a stream because you're trespassing because people own, the midway point all the way. That doesn't seem fair to me. That's one that I hate too because that doesn't seem fair. And I'm not just saying like it doesn't allow us to like hunt or fish or these things, but like just kids, like you mentioned, the kids playing on the dock, like just having access. Like I remember being a kid going up and down, like was it Duck Creek where I grew up in Green Bay?
Yeah,
Like you just have access to somewhere of water and you'll walk up and down it and fish in it or whatever, just to be neat,
being
be
a kid.
outside.
Yep.
And when you start taking that away because it's private property, or like I've seen videos on social of people doing that, of like someone's like walking up a stream and fishing, and this landowner comes down and from the middle of the freaking woods and starts screaming at this person, the trespassing. And next, like they're calling the wardens and getting kicked out. And they're just fishing, like they're not hurting anything. They're not on dry land.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just it's tough. It's tough to see that stuff and be like, oh, this is what we're doing here now.
Yeah, they're just trying to people don't wanna see it near their private property, the stuff that they work so hard for, or maybe they just inherited. You don't know everybody's story, but end of the day, somebody did something to screw it up for you if you're getting that kinda rain put down on you. There's just, they had a bad experience, and, they're trying to be equal opportunity, uh, mean to everybody. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, or you get the situations where you do have access to something, and then somebody else in their family figures it out, and then it's all, no, we got to let so and so, or
Yeah.
I used to run that all the time
Oh, yeah.
when
With
we'd be
private
out
private access.
looking for fields and stuff and goose hunting. We'll be doing a lot of field goose hunting. Can't sometimes we run into stuff is like, oh no, we don't want to go out there goose hunting in the cornfield because it might mess up the bow hunting. I mean, do you see a legitimate argument to that, or is that just the overall blanket line that we used to always get because so their family
Yeah,
members used to.
there's a little bit to it, and I can say that it does goof up the bow hunting a little bit, especially if you're hunting a field right next to, close to the bedding area, to the food, that sort of thing. And I only know that because I leased a piece of property for a little while when I was younger. Um, we used to bow hunt it a lot, and then I got into waterfowl hunting, and it was a great piece for Canada geese. So we would start early season right away when it opened up in September, and we'd go hard until probably October. And then when it got tougher and the birds had moved on, they got smart. They were local birds. Uh, but Dad would go back there and wouldn't see any deer.
Hmm. Even afterwards, huh?
Yeah, even well, towards gun season, you'd start to see them a little bit, but if we stuck to the front field, it was better. But if we were off in the middle of the property like we used to, um, it was a bit tougher. Late season, there was always deer because we weren't out there, but
Yeah.
early season when we used to see a lot of deer coming out and feeding on the greens, we weren't seeing that. So it can have an effect on deer movement for sure, depending on how much pressure you put on it.
Yeah. Another story off the topic of so we can maybe try and jump somewhat off that
Yeah.
soapbox of pay for play, although I still think that's definitely a topic that we'll be exploring more going forward. Did you hear about that? There's a couple of guys that get caught putting more weights in fish.
I did, in bass this time of all things,
Yeah,
and
big bass splash tournament.
Big Bass Splash Tournament was at Missouri?
Yeah, Toledo Bend Reservoir. So
Okay,
like between Texas, Missouri, or
okay.
that
Yeah,
what do they call it? Oxacarna, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah, the Ozark area.
Yeah,
Um, it's it's mind-boggling that that's the level we have to go to win something, to, be famous, whatever it is, if it's fame, fortune, or whatever. If you can't do it honestly, why bother?
I
I
know.
mean, you're no better than anybody else.
Is
You're really not.
a $100,000 prize for this tournament. First place there was 2.59 pounds of lead that they had
Wow,
in these fish.
wow. And they gotta be smart enough to know. I mean, even Salmonorama, like, you go to Salmonorama or any tournament now, they're scanning the fish. They
Right.
got a metal detector, they're checking fish.
I've just never understood it being worth it. You know what I mean?
No, no. I
It's
I
just
don't see how it's worth it, but I can't history repeats itself once again.
like, I mean, here's a prime example of something that I would absolutely never do. But kayak tournament, right? There's no judge with you, all by yourself. Who's to say that I couldn't just like have night crawlers and catch everything as long as no one sees me? And it's on your own. It's put them on your board. It's take a picture. It's submit it. There's no proof. Like I would never do that. I guess because I have a different moral compass.
Yeah.
But I just can't put myself in place of someone that would or like why. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally makes sense. Uh, you're not a good sportsman or woman if that's what you're gonna do, is cheat.
Like, it can't feel as good. You know what I mean? Like, part of
No,
the
I mean,
winning or it's
if you got a conscience, it definitely doesn't feel as good.
that's what I wonder. I'm like, to me, part of competing or part of doing anything is enjoying the process, right? Enjoy or being able to enjoy the victory, so to speak. But if there's that caveat even in yourself that you know that you didn't really like that's where I guess I struggle and these guys putting weights in fish and it's just like you also realize how crappy they're making the entire sport look.
Well, yeah, and it goes the same with hunting and people getting busted for poaching and over bag limit and all the other fun stuff. I mean, it's just making the whole community look bad.
I've
We're
always
all
said,
we're all looking terrible at that point.
yeah,
And I get hung up on it once in a while too, and I catch myself saying it. It's not the anti-hunters that it's ammo for, because they already have enough ammunition to make us look bad. It's the person that's stuck in the middle. It's the person that doesn't maybe have an opinion of hunting or fishing, they see that behavior and go, "Oh, so this is how they play that. I don't think I like that."
Mhm.
So now they're starting to harbor bad feelings towards, outdoor activities like hunting and fishing.
We don't have a hunting and fishing problem in the industry. We have a public relations problem. Like,
Mhm.
we are our own worst nightmare, and we are our own worst publicists with this stuff. And again, maybe it's just like general news. The the bad stuff is always what is the leading story, and that's the stuff that everyone talks about. No one talks about the good stuff. It's always the bad stuff. So, okay, there's that. But can we make the bad stuff not so crappy? You know what I mean? Like, if there's got to be bad, let's make it not so bad. Like,
Yeah,
let's not be cheating in tournaments, and let's not be, poaching things. Just, or I don't know. There's been all the crazy things that we've heard throughout all of our lives. I'm sure. I mean, I know
yeah,
stories that whether they're true or not, they're tales. Are they true? I don't know. Of
they're
you
out
know
there.
people catching fish, right? Like, here's an example: ice fishing, because we're in the upper Midwest. We do out ice fishing. Some guide or whatever catches some big fish, and he wants to get photos for a sponsor. Tying that fish up under the ice, still in the water, whatever, or having these big live well. I mean, I know how to drill a live well into the ice. It's pretty
Oh,
easy
yeah,
to do. We used to do it all the time.
all the time.
Not for like, but like just literally keep our fish instead of
Just
throwing
keep
them in
the
the
fish alive, because if I only catch 1 or 2, it's great, then I can go, "You know what? I don't feel like cleaning those 2, they're still alive, I can put them back in the lake and somebody else can enjoy them, or I'll catch
right.
them another time. Maybe they'll
Bingo.
be bigger." Yeah.
Nailed it. That's the point for it.
Mhm.
But they will then take said fish for a photograph opportunity down the road, and especially like the ones that are like tied up. Chances of surviving after that really slim to none.
Yeah. I've heard of people get busted for penning fish, bass guys, walleye guys. I've heard of a couple different people, getting in trouble for that. They catch a bunch of fish, they find them, they're nice big ones, they know they got a tournament coming, they sink a pen, they put them fish in the pen, and, when no one's looking, they go pull them out and put them in the live well. It's not right, it's not cool.
Yeah. Well, how was your turkey season, Craig? Last time we were on, we talked about a situation where you had a very okay moment. You
Yeah,
you turned it around, right?
I did turn it around, I ended up shooting one, the very next day. Had 5 birds come to the fence line. 2 of them were curious enough to come and scope out their, what they thought were lady friends, and, one of their Jake buddies strutting for the lady friends, and one ended up leaving, and the other one ended up coming home with me. So it went well. I got more white meat in the freezer, which is good.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. So I know you're a big fishing guy. Obviously, one of the hosts of Okayest Fisher, along with Matt and all the cool stuff you guys do. I know you guys did an episode. Was it last week's episode that was talking about the Great Lakes and conservation and all that stuff?
Yes. Yeah, we talked about conservation Congress more or less, and BHA. So Alec Becker's, his name keeps coming up. He will be on one of your episodes eventually. I
Yes,
guarantee
you
it.
will.
But Brian
100%.
Hayden, yeah, but Brian Hayden too. I mean, he's part of Conservation Congress, and it's more or less just kind of bring awareness to, hey, and this is what we bump into with some of these things. It's not just about fishing all the time. It's going to be hunting and access too. But I feel it's really important to bring that to light, that hey, there is a conservation Congress, and
Mhm.
us as sportsmen and women, if you like to hunt, fish, or just like access to put your kayak in, even if you're not a fisher person, or whatever it is, you want your kids to go play by the lake, uh, get involved with Conservation Congress. Get out there and go to spring hearings. They're in April every year. Every county's got one. It's important. It's more important than you realize. And the old saying goes, "If you don't vote, don't bitch." Um, you need to go and vote on this stuff. Otherwise, it disappears, and you don't want to be that person going, "Well, I thought we used to be able to do that, and what happened?"
Right, when you get the opportunity to do your surveys, do your surveys,
So,
fill those
do 'em.
out. I know
Yep,
I was picked this year, in the state of Wisconsin to both do a whitetail survey
yep,
and a turkey survey.
great.
That's the first time that I've gotten both surveys, like, in the same year, so I was pretty
There you
stoked
go.
at that. makes me feel like either it was like just luck of the draw, or maybe they're actually putting more surveys out there.
They're probably putting more surveys out there, and depending on where you hunt, like they know the state of my area pretty well. And I also like when you harvest, right? Let's say you harvest a deer during bow or gun season, they ask you, rate the weather on the date, the time you saw the deer, the time you harvested the animal. Um, how many deer did you see? That kind of thing. They don't necessarily ask if you saw bucks or does, but they ask you how many deer you saw in the time that you were out. So how many hours were you out? So they get a pretty good idea. If you're in an area of high harvest rate, I think they get a pretty good idea. But if you're in an area maybe where you're hunting, there's just less people hunting there, and they kind of want to know a little more about it, then they might get you involved with a survey.
Mhm.
Or maybe it is completely random. I don't know.
I feel like where I'm at, the lack of people hunting wouldn't wouldn't be but
No.
maybe turkey hunting could be, because I've encountered ever whenever turkey hunting in the areas that I've hunted, maybe 2 other people
Yeah.
through the years. Now, bow hunting, I've encountered quite a bit more, but I mean that just comes with the territory. I think there's generally more people that hunt deer than hunt turkeys. I mean, I always kind of always thought of turkey season as the thing that deer hunters do to pass the time in the spring.
It is enjoyable though if you like. I mean, you've waterfowl hunted a bunch in your life.
Yeah.
There's something about when you can turn a group of ducks, whether it's mallards or divers, with just a couple clucks or whatever on your duck call. It's the same concept with turkeys, only turkeys are much more vocal, and they want to play the game most of the time.
I think they're a lot smarter than ducks too. Especially you mentioned diver ducks. I
Yeah,
will straight say diver ducks are dumb. There's nothing audio about them. They are straight visual. They've got to see it. You got to give them something to see to come to. They're pretty damn dumb. I mean, I remember taking a friend up for the first time, and it was kind of the water, like the tide was out, so we couldn't be like shore. We had to like actually get out on a sandbar and stand on the sandbar with water like up to our like mid chest. Like we're standing in the decoys. So we're setting decoys out and like, I'm bringing stuff. We're gonna stand out here. So we're gonna hunt. It's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna stand in the decoys and hunt. It's like, no, you're not. So
you
I'm
can
like,
body boot for them.
right. I'm like, no,
You
we're
get
gonna
bottom for it.
stand in the decoys because they're not gonna get that close to shore. So we can stand on this sandbar. And they were mind blown. Just smoking them. Like if we had
Mhm.
had decoys back there near shore where we could, shoot just past the decoys or to the decoys, we never would have had these birds.
Nope.
We had to get out to where they were going to be, and they're not going to see us. As long as you're not moving around doing much, they don't care. They're just
Yeah.
looking at the giant raft. That's what they're focused on. You're just another body in the raft, essentially.
Yep.
That's why
It's
layout boats work.
yes, 100%. It's a
So,
it's a fun way to hunt them too.
oh, now you're bringing back like you bring back the thoughts. Like everyone keeps trying to pull me in that direction, and I still keep going. No, like I can't go back to that world because I mean I was psychotic. Like how some people are about bow hunting. That's how I was about duck hunting and diver
Mhm.
hunting and whatnot. And I just I don't have the time to go back. I've got a family. I've got different priorities in life. I've got this show. I've got all of my other stuff. I can't go back into that world. Plus, it interferes with now that I'm bow hunting, and it interferes with my late fishing. I still love fishing into October.
Absolutely.
And I know Matt would agree with me on that one from your show. Fishing into October is phenomenal. Some
Oh,
of the
yeah.
best fishing.
Yeah. Well, way less pressure, less people, no personal watercraft ripping around making noise. It's nice.
Oh man, that personal watercraft stuff too. Like I get lakes for everybody. It's not my lake. I don't own it, but I don't know what the change is in the last how many years, but I swear there's more fun craft, personal watercraft flying around than even like fishing boats now.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just the lakes that I've been put on recently, but it is just
It could be. It
it's
could be a fact.
craziness.
Just location.
Oh, well, anyway, I don't want to take this too long. I know you're a busy guy, got a lot of stuff going on. I appreciate you jumping in and
You
chit
bet.
chatting a bit, covering a couple of the controversial issues that I just kind of wanted to put on the table, so to speak, because there are things that are important. There are things, like you mentioned, get involved in Conservation Congress to at least know that these scenarios and this stuff exists. The more you bury your head in the sand and act like what doesn't affect you doesn't matter. I always loved the old Martin Niemöller line of first they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because it was a trade unionist. Then they came for was it? They came for the something or other, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't them. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't one. And then they came for me, and there's no one left to speak for me. I think that's a very powerful statement, and it's something I've always taken with me since the first time I ever heard that quote.
You gotta be your own voice.
That's just it. You always have to be willing to stand up and look out for what's best for number one, which is you, but knowing that all problems aren't immune from coming to your door.
That's right.
Because it's not knocking on your door today doesn't mean it won't be. And I think, especially in things like election years, knowing more about issues and knowing more about these things makes you a more powerful individual.
I couldn't agree more.
Imagine that. We can wrap up with words of wisdom. About the last time you're going to get that on this show. All right. Thanks again, Greg. If you want to follow Greg and the rest of the gang, you can follow, what is it, at Okayest Fisher, at
Yep.
Okayest Hunter. And then through there, you can find Tubbs if you want to follow his own Instagram. Obviously, you want to make sure to follow us as well at Camp Okayest and subscribe to the YouTube stream. We want to make sure we get to that subscription limit so we can make this a live show. I want this to be a live Thursday night thing where we all hang out, shoot the bull, have some beverages. You weigh in with comments. You call in. We'll chit chat. It's going to be a lot of fun coming forward. We got to hit that number first. So do us a favor. If you like any of this, give a thumbs up. Make sure you follow Okayest Fisher. Camp Okayest. Let's see what else should I give anyone else plugs or anyone else on the Okayest podcast network? We just leave them be.
We have the Okayest podcast network with you, us, and I'm by us. I say Okayest Fisher, Okayest Hunter, Okayest Cook, Western Territory, Okayest Trapper. Boy, I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there. There's Paul Campbell.
Yeah. Oh, the conversation, by the way, last week with Paul Campbell, turkey season that we had right here on this show. Awesome. A lot of great stories, a lot of great wisdom. That was a lot of fun. If you missed that episode, seriously, go back. You've got to check it out. Paul is a brilliant guy, does a lot of great work with the National Wild Turkey Federation. He knows some great people, and just him telling his story about how he got the Grand Slam from hunting turkeys. Really cool stuff. So go check out Paul. By the way, speaking of all the other shows, we're just gonna talk about them as we close. Um, I did see on social a clip of the guys from Okayest Cook. Like they're talking about what's her last name? Olivia. She goes like at Olivia Vated or whatever. Becoming big on social media, on TikTok. Mainly follow her on Instagram. She's like a private chef and she cooks and she curses and flips off the camera a lot. And like she's entertaining and I adore her. I think she's freaking cool. They had a clip they were talking about her. I think they spent an entire show talking about her.
Wow.
It just seemed a little thirsty, guys. It just seemed a little thirsty, is all I'm gonna say.
Fair enough.
So, you can go for thirsty stuff for those guys, or you can, get the meat and potatoes and the issues that matter here at Camp Okayest. Not a shots fired. I just, thought I'd point it up to see if they're paying attention. All right, you guys have a good one. We'll catch you back here next week. Greg, you have a safe, wonderful rest of your week, and you can now hold the trophy that you're the first return guest to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Next week, we'll eat whatever Greg's cooking.